Good evening, and welcome to the city council meeting tonight. Um, On a roll call, our mayor, he is excused. And then if you please stand while we do the pledge, and Councilman Lopez will do the pledge of allegiance, and the invocation would be with Councilman Andazola.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lord God, Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing us together, the family and the community that believes in what Safford is with our pride, Heavenly Father. We thank you for our city manager, our city clerk, our department head, and our employees that we value very much, Heavenly Father. We ask you to please open up our ears and our hearts to listen to what we have to learn tonight and make business happen for this wonderful community, Lord. And we please ask you to please send your spirit on everybody tonight, and we ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Okay, then we'll move on to item number 5. Any comments, citizen comments on agenda items? Okay, the number 6, any citizen comments on non-agenda items? And I believe we have 2. The first one would be Ben Brown.
Hello, good evening. My name is Benjamin Brown. For the record, I live at 2807 South Cinnabar in the Glen Meadow Borough. I came here tonight, council, to bring to your attention the hardships you place upon your citizens. The policies enforced with deposits in respect to the utilities need to be revamped. I wholeheartedly disagree with your policies about taking a double deposit after paying a utility bill in full when in arrears. A simple reconnect fee to compensate the city employee time would suffice and be fair in this matter. Also, to hold someone's money for 12 months after they agreed to extend services, meaning you've already gone in to set up the utilities, they've already agreed to the initial deposit, seems like a second bite of the apple. And I don't think that's fair. Punitive measures like these should not be enforced within our community. I will continue to join every second and fourth Monday until the change happens.
Thank you. Tom Green?
For me? I thought we were still on non-agenda or agenda items. Hi. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tom Green, and I'm here representing the Gila Valley Arts Council, which I've been a proud member of and on their board for 30+ years. I need to retire. But anyway, this is a big thank you. We found out a few months ago about City of Safford's new grant program, which I understand maybe even continue again. And if you don't know, serving with me on the Arts Council board is a fine lady by the name of Paulette LeBlanc. If you know Paulette, she has antennas. She catches every scuttlebutt out there on where the money is. So when she heard about the city's new program, she of course says, oh, well, we actually had a need. It was kind of interesting that at the time we were not short the money, but we have an event coming up, and the artists needed lots of equipment that we don't have in the Safford High School where we present our events, didn't have. So if you don't know us, most of our events, people think sometimes that we bring everything artistically to the valley. We don't. We do 4 shows, and we present them at David M. Player Center for the Arts with Safford Unified Schools. And they've been fantastic. So it's really cool to me that this grant from the city is actually, I think, going to benefit our kids that go to school right here in the city of Safford. So to make things short and come to the point, in a month from now, on February 7th, we have a mariachi coming Mike might be there, and because he brings mariachi, but we haven't brought one for a while. And this particular mariachi is world famous. It's called Mariachi Garibaldi de Jaime Cuellar. And it's been a while since we brought one, but they're way up there, and they said, we gotta have these special microphones and on the violins. And most mariachis that play at weddings, they just stroll in and they take your money and life's good. But this particular one is up there top a ways. And so they wanted us to provide have these microphones available. And we said, well, we don't have that. And Chris Murphy said, we don't have those, so there's no way. So we found out what they needed, how much it costs, and the grant was sitting there like, okay, well, we can try, see what happens. Otherwise, they'll just have to sing a cappella. And so the city of Safford, thank you very much. This is a big thank you. Approved the grant that Paulette wrote to you all, and we got the money, and we actually spent the money, and the microphones that we're gonna use at this performance were supposed to be here today, but delayed probably because of the cold. But it's a pretty large, a good sum of microphones. So again, just thank you to the city of Safford. I'm gonna present Mr. Casella with just a token of our appreciation. It's some complimentary tickets that he can share with staff or, I don't know, the council maybe. You know, Mike, you can get your own tickets, right? There we go. So anyway, thank you. I understand there's going to be possibly more grants of this nature, and I would recommend that anybody that has a nonprofit like we do needs a little extra help. It's fortuitous. So thank you very much again.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, then we're gonna change the agenda at this time. We're gonna move on to our work session. It's item number 15, and we're gonna selection and direction to construct city park amenities.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Good evening. So we're entering a work session. We have the vendor here that helped us with our park design. So I'm going to go through a not so brief introduction with the CCF to lay out kind of where we've come through and where we're going. And then I will turn it over to the vendor to make a presentation, at which time we can then have a discussion. So staff is seeking direction from City Council regarding the development of a park facility at the corner of 8th Avenue and Discovery Boulevard. Development of the park site is based on the possible construction of several amenities that could include a splash pad, amphitheater, pickleball courts, a food truck, food court, and playground equipment. In addition, there are a variety of infrastructure needs that support overall park design, such as lighting, walking paths, escaping, irrigation systems, bathrooms, and parking lots. There are also infrastructure needs that integrate the park into the overall city infrastructure, such as sewer mains, curb gutter, and sidewalk. City Council should identify the major amenities they wish to fund, which will then also require appropriations to provide the supporting infrastructure. Sewer main construction will be funded by enterprise fund appropriations and will be required for the site regardless of amenities chosen. Brief background, staff has overseen a lengthy process addressing development of the park site, which has included participation and input from citizens, the Parks and Rec Committee, staff, and City Council. The result of that process is the Park Master Plan being presented to Council this evening. Analysis. Development of the recreational amenities was originally facilitated by the receipt of ARPA funding by the City of Safford. Council directed staff to use those funds in a manner that created benefits for our residents. Given the recent focus on the development of more recreational amenities and in consultation with City Council, $2.4 million was earmarked for the park's construction. Subsequent to the development of the FY23 budget, the city had additional funds become available in general fund reserves. Those funds, in part, were then made available to supplement the original $2.4 million in ARPA dollars. This took the form of $3.546 million of additional general fund reserves that were added to the FY 2025 capital improvement program. Budget implications. The project was originally budgeted at $2.4 million, utilizing ARPA funds to pay for project-related costs. The passage of the capital improvement program budget during the FY 2024 budget process added an additional $4.3 million. $3.5 million from general fund appropriations, which was former CARES money and general fund reserves, with an additional $800,000 to be used from wastewater reserve funds for the construction of a sewer main. As currently budgeted in the CIP, project costs are budgeted at $6.78 million, $5.98 million of general fund appropriations with an additional $800,000 of wastewater funds appropriation to be used for the installation of the sewer main. $3 million of the $6.78 is general fund reserves, with $546,000 resulting from previous use of CARES Act funding used to fund city operational costs. All general fund reserves that have been budgeted are above the required reserve policy of 50% of prior year actuals plus current debt service. Staff is seeking council guidance on all budgeted expenditures beyond the original $2.4 million approved in the 2024 budget cycle. So as it stands now, currently, we have $2.4 million that has been budgeted and we're currently acting on in terms of park construction. That will be the equivalent in the presentation to what is called Phase 1. Phase 2 would include the monies budgeted in FY 2025, which is the additional $4.3 million. And then there will be a request and discussion regarding what we'll call Phase 3. Phase 3 would require additional funding beyond those monies already in the CIP in order to complete the park in its entirety. So having said that, I'd like to turn it over to Rebecca to begin the presentation. And then after she gets through the presentation, then we can have a discussion.
Thank you, and good evening. It's a pleasure to be here again to speak with you all regarding this park. We're excited to bring you updates and show you what the past year has done as far as all the work that has been put into it. So to start with introductions, again, my name is Rebecca Field. I'm a landscape architect. I've been here in Arizona for over 20 years now doing landscape architecture. Have Kevin Payne with me as well. He's also with Kimley Horn. We're the design landscape architects and civil engineers on this project. So what we'd like to go over this evening is the final master plan. So the last time we talked to you all, we had several options that we were considering, but we now have a final master plan. We're going to go through the phasing opportunities that we've identified based on the funding that's available, and then we'll talk through next steps and where do we go from here. So starting with the final master plan, again, this is the result of a lot of input that we've had from the community. It's a result of discussions from you all, and it shows the interest that the community has. This final plan provides a total of 140 parking spaces on both the west and the east sides of the wash. 20 of those spaces on the west side could be used for food truck events areas. So when a food truck event is going on, there will be 50 spaces, but otherwise there's the full 70 on the west side and 70 on the east side. This master plan includes a 2,800 square foot splash pad area, a 1,200 square foot amphitheater facility, almost 2.5 acres of open turf. It includes 4 pickleball courts, 8 16-foot by 16-foot ramadas, and then 2 medium to large ramadas. So if we go to the next slide, here are some of the amenities that are included. Again, what we heard at the beginning of the project is that there are 5 top amenities that the community wanted to see in this park. The first is an amphitheater space. So this is the image that we heard from the community was the most desirable in terms of overall look and feel. So this is the general idea that went into the amphitheater that's shown on the master plan. The plan also shows a splash pad, and again, based on feedback from the community, this image represents the highest ranked visual look for a splash pad in the community. It has the natural appearance with some features within it. So this is, again, carrying forward into the master plan. We also have pickleball courts. So we have, as I mentioned, 4 pickleball courts on the master plan, and then we have some shaded structures that are associated with those as well. We also have a pinchless zip line. So we have a dual run system like shown in this photo. Again, this was a highly rated photo from the community showing some shade and then the ability for 2 racers to go side by side. And then lastly, of the top 5 amenities, an inclusive play space. So this is what this image shows. This was the image most desired by the community, and this is the concept that we took moving forward into the master plan. There are a few other elements that are in the master plan as well that I wanted to touch on. We have a pedestrian bridge that's going to connect the west side to the east side. We also have some Ramada spaces, as shown in this image here. This is, again, a typical Ramada that we will include throughout the facility. As I mentioned, there are 8 of the 16 by 16 Ramadas. We also have the large Ramadas. As I mentioned, we have 2 medium to large Ramadas that will look similar to this structure here. We also have a food truck court area. So on the plan, there is a cul-de-sac area that's doubling as a food truck court during events, and then it can also serve as parking for the pickleball court during off time. So we heard the feedback that you all gave us last time about parking closer to the pickleball courts. This food truck court will serve as that dual purpose. Yes.
Is the pickleball court shaded like you show it there?
If you would scroll back to the master plan, I'll show you what that looks like. And zoom in a little bit right there. So the pickleball courts aren't shaded, but the 2 brown structures just off to the side, those are the shaded areas. That's similar to the image we showed, and that the pickleball courts weren't shaded, but there were 2 shade structures associated with
And
them.
they can be used for the food trucks?
They could,
Okay,
yes.
so
And
that's, I think that's, okay.
yeah, and in this image here, that H is the food truck court. And so the Ramada that's right to the bottom right of that, it's a brown structure. That's a large Ramada that can be used for food truck events. And again, during non-use times, if there's not a food truck event going on, this cul-de-sac is wide enough for public parking. So it can be a parking area, and then there's parking associated just north of there as well. So moving on to the amenities, we did have some questions previously about how the enclosure was going to look for the splash pad. That was important to make that a nice facility too. The image that we showed had some natural looking walls that helped border some of that. If you look at our further developed plan set that I believe was distributed, there's some additional imagery in there. We're going with a combination of the natural walls and a look similar to this photo that has a metal fence, and then it has some nice decorative columns to tie into that natural wall appearance. Yes, sir.
I believe on one of your pictures about the splash pad, one of them had rocks protruding in it.
Yes.
Is there, could that be a safety issue?
So the way this image is an example of a similar look. What we would look to do is have a wall feature that maybe has some of the natural stone surfacing. It's not in the direct splash area, so what we're proposing is for it to be a little bit further separated from where the water is, to not have such a close proximity to the spray areas and then the wall, so that a kid might run into the wall, for example. We've separated that back in the concept, but the idea is to create a little bit of enclosure with a similar wall to this, and then tie it into that fence and column structure that we showed. Other amenities that we've included are also a FitCore area. So we heard from the community that a FitCore facility would be fun, and we have room for that in this park, so we're showing a location for this as well. So I'll pan back up, if you could, to the master plan and see if there are any questions about any of the layout features here. I believe we had gone through this previously, but I can also go through each piece if there are any additional questions. Again, splash pad is at the top is A, our play area is B and C, or B. C is a restroom. D is the zip line with another play facility. We have E is the FitCore area. C is a second restroom. We have our parking, food truck court, open lawn is G. The bridge is L. And then we have our pickleball courts is I, the 2 Ramadas associated with the pickleball courts, and a lawn area. We're calling it a bring your own game lawn space, so you can bring cornhole, items or whatever anyone wants to do in that space. That's an open area. As you go to the east, oh sure.
And so that's another large Ramada, right, to the,
Yes, that
So you have
that
even
structure is
more
a large
covered
Ramada.
areas, Councilman Lopez, with that other large covered area.
And And H is gonna be parking when there's not food trucks, so that can be used there at that time.
Correct.
Is the walking trail still, the one that's still on the east side of the wash? I thought some of the fitness stuff was probably gonna get worked into that, and that might be for another time, but
There's a potential for it to be. The east side of the wash has more drainage concerns on it. So keeping the infrastructure, that we don't want to be inundated with water, we're trying to keep most of that on the west side. The amphitheater is built so that it's higher above the water elevation, but there are areas there that are pretty low still. So we're trying to keep a lot of the equipment on the west side.
yeah, and where we end up placing the bridge would be important too.
Correct. So Kevin is our drainage and civil engineer. He's studied this at length with our survey that we've received. So all of this has been placed and truthed to what is in the field right now. So the plans that we currently have are 30% design plans that show more detail than what the master plan does, but it has been cited so that it's appropriately placed with all the different utilities and the easements that are running through there, the drainage concerns. All of that information has been considered. On the east side of the Graveyard Wash, as you cross the bridge, that's where we get to the amphitheater space. J is the shade structure for the amphitheater, and then we have open lawn area as you go south. There's a ample amount of lawn space there that leads to the parking area that's labeled as item F. And then we have different walking paths to the east of there, right along that edge with the cemetery. And an additional larger ramada. Again, those brown boxes are ramada spaces. Any questions about the master plan? If not, we'll move on to the phasing discussion. So looking at the process and the design that has been put into it, again, we have put this, truthed it with the existing site conditions. We've looked at the survey. We've prepared estimates on construction costs. What we've determined is for the original amount that was allocated for this project was the 2.4 million. What's shown on the screen is what can be built with that money. So what it does include is the splash pad with the restroom and pump building. It includes a portion of the parking lot areas with lighting, landscape and irrigation improvements associated with those amenities, ramadas and site amenities within the areas shown highlighted on the screen. It also includes 8th Avenue improvements. We're adding curb and gutter along 8th Avenue along with some sidewalk improvements, so that is in this budget. We have internal sidewalks to the project as part of this first phase. The earthwork and site preparation that's required to get these amenities in place, and then the bridge. That total is 2.3 million, and we have an additional 800,000 that again is coming from a separate budget for the sewer extension in this location. So this is a zoom in, thank you there, that shows what all would be included in this. So again, splash pad, it does include that one restroom that is necessary to support the splash pad, the parking, lawn, and bridge, in addition to some ramadas. And if you go to the next slide,
That's a pretty expensive bridge.
it is an expensive bridge. It's a pretty big span. I think is it a 60-foot span, Kevin? Yeah, 60-foot bridge.
That one's kind of scary.
It's a big bridge, and it has abutments. It has, all what that cost includes is all the infrastructure that is with it. So the bridge is one cost, but then there's the decking, there's the abutments, there's the connections that are required for it that are all built into that number. So here's an example of the amenities that are being included in this phase. For that 2.4 million, again, the bridge, ramadas, splash pad, and the associated restroom building. In the 30% plan set that has been developed, we've started exploring more detail on what that splash pad might look like. So these are some examples. We're working with an aquatics designer on this of what could be incorporated. Again, looking at the natural rock elements, looking at the possibility of having walls, as shown here. They're a little bit offset though from the play area, so we're trying to make a better separation between the running play space and the walls themselves. And just exploring options within your budget that could be done within this space. Any questions on phase one? If not, we'll move on to phase two. So this is getting us to the full build out of the west side of the park. This includes the playgrounds coming in at $1 million. They are one of the top priorities from the community, and we are looking at several play spaces. The playground cost that you see there includes the zip line. It includes the fit core area as well. We also have parking, additional parking areas with lighting, and the food truck court comes in as part of this phase. We have additional landscape and irrigation improvements associated with the improvements, ramadas, shade canopies, and other site amenities like benches and picnic tables and things like that. We have an additional restroom. That's the one located closest to the bridge. Other sidewalks, the earthwork, and the site prep that goes into building these improvements, the pickleball courts, and then additional site lighting. And that total is $3.1 million. So again, zooming in on the improvements, with this new phase, we have the addition of a playground space. We have our fit core, zip line, and additional ramada areas. And then we have our food truck court with the associated ramada. We get 4 out of the 5 top amenities that the community requested. The only one lacking is the amphitheater. So phase 1 and 2 will get the full build out of the west side. And then it includes the playground, fit core space, and zip line if you scroll down. The images shown here are reflective of what is being shown in the 30% plan set. Very similar components. So when you look at those plans, you'll see equipment that's laid out. This is very similar to what that equipment looks like. And the fit core course on the top there is exactly what's shown on the 30% plans. So this is an example of what you will see in the park.
Pickleball courts, how many are there? 2 or 4?
4. Here's another example of some of the amenities that will be included in this phase 2. It includes the inclusive play features, and these 2 pieces of equipment are shown on the 30% plan set as well. So with the phase 1 and phase 2 together, we get the full build out of the West Park. And that's for a total cost of $5.4 million. And as a reminder, there is that additional $800,000 for the sewer extension that is separate from this, but coming from a different bucket, still included in the park build out at this point. And so we get the full west half with, again, 4 out of the 5 top amenities that the community has requested. So moving on to phase 3. Phase 3 is where we get the amphitheater. Phase 3 is the east side of the park. The east side of the park has the biggest challenges in terms of the drainage and just the overall site preparation. So phase 3 total is $2.4 million and includes the amphitheater, parking areas with lighting associated for the amphitheater and east side of the park. There's a pretty significant number there for landscape and irrigation improvements, and that's because we have a really large lawn space. This is where we get most of that 2.4 acres of lawn for the site. We also have additional ramadas and site amenities, sidewalk and pathways in this area, all the earthwork and preparation that the site needs to have these facilities on it, and then additional site lighting. Phase 3 includes an additional extension of the sewer, which is again part of a separate budget, but that's a $248,000 shown here. So that takes the sewer from the wash down to Discovery Park Boulevard. And then if we click forward, there's some just examples of what the amenities are in this. It concludes the 5 top amenities with the addition of the amphitheater, the ramadas, and then if you scroll down one more, this is an example diagram of what's shown on the 30% plans and starting to give you an idea of what that amphitheater structure might look like, where it has a overhang and then a building facility in the back. So this is, again, what's shown on the plan set.
There would be utilities in there, like electrical and all?
Yes, yes, all the utilities and all the hookups. That's an all-in cost that was provided there. And so where we're at right now, we have prepared 30% site plans for the entire park. So the package that you've received has those documents in it. It shows more detail on the layout. What the images show that I've presented here tonight are the master plan. The 30% site plans show more detail. It shows specifically the location of the splash pad, the footprint of the amenities. It shows the play structures and how those are located. So I encourage you to look at those as well, just to see what comments you have. It's hard to see on the screen, but yeah, there's a lot of detail in the set, and this is just the beginning of what will come when we fully build out the full plan set for the park.
When you say splash pad, you're including the filtering system.
Correct, yes. So any cost where we have the splash pad, it has to be associated with the restroom pump building as well. They go hand in hand. So we can't do one without the other.
The cost.
The cost,
Okay.
yes, yes. And so then, as we go down to this next slide, this is a summary of all the phases and the total park cost. So phase 1 was 2.3, phase 2, 3.1. If we add in phase 3, that's the additional 2.4 million for a total park cost of 7.8 million. And then the total utility costs are 1.1 million for the project.
That comes from another budget.
Correct, correct. So there's the 7.8 out of one and the 1.1 out of separate. And you have right now the 2.3 and the 3.1 identified. So next steps, again, we had this final master plan completed in October. We submitted our 30% plan set of the entire park in November. The 60% plan set will come in early spring 2024, 90% plans in late spring, final plans in early summer. Comments or questions?
Mr. Chris,
Oh,
sorry.
go ahead.
I'm sorry, Mr. Lopez, go ahead.
So you say the sewer and all that comes from a different budget.
Correct.
You said, I thought you said 4 big ramadas to start with.
We have 8 16-foot by 16-foot
Okay.
ramadas in the total park build-out. There are 2 medium and large, so 1 medium ramada and 1 large ramada.
And yeah, you did use the word totally. The playground equipment would handle all people's, all kids.
Correct, it's inclusive, yes.
Inclusive.
Yes.
Okay. That's all I have right now.
Vice Mayor? Mr. Casala, question. Mr. Casala, do we have the funding? If we were to go with all 3 phases, do we have the funding to handle this?
Yes, we do. And it could be easily covered by the additional money we have in general fund reserves.
I'm all for doing the whole thing. That's what I'm for.
I agree, Michael. If we can do it reasonably, which I think we can, there's no reason not to do it all.
I'd rather have a full park than have phases done. Let's have it all done so we have a community place for everybody to go, for everybody to have somebody to do something, and that's the way I see it.
And another thing too, the longer we wait, the more expensive it's
Yes.
gonna be. That's for sure.
Mainly because we right now have the current one-time funding. That's in the money, the one-time funding is there.
Right.
Do we take a vote on this, or?
No.
No, it works.
What I'm looking for from council, the reason we structured it this way is so that it would be easy to provide direction, which is what I'm looking for. Phase 1, we're already in. Phase 2 would be part of the FY '25 budget, which we'll be working on coming up. It's in the CIP already. It simply would become actually appropriated as part of the ongoing operating budget for the upcoming discussion. And then phase 3 would be additional funds that we would have to add in order to do the full build-out.
Well, I agree with what I've heard so far. Let's move ahead and
Well, we're not raising anything to pay for it. We're not having the subsidized cost. The one-time monies are there. Now, I know you're still gonna deal with, these people on costs and different amenities and stuff like that. Bridge 255, that scares me.
Actually, I was surprised, based on my conversations with our Public Works Director, that in discussions about crossing the Wash in another location, that's a fairly reasonable cost, I think, for a bridge of that size, actually.
Well, so we can get 2 of them for that.
Well, and we have reached out to the vendor for the bridge so that we have concrete costs from them on what that infrastructure is going to take. And so that cost includes their number and it includes all of the support, as I mentioned. So it's not just the bridge itself, it's all of the work that goes into getting that bridge on the site.
how wide is the bridge?
Bridge is 12 foot wide, I believe,
Oh, okay.
here on the inside, so actually bridge is a little wider, but 12 foot of usable space.
We did talk about it supporting a vehicle for the
Correct.
people that are gonna be taking care of it.
Correct. Yes, that's correct. And so again, in the placement of the bridge and the way the pathways have been created here in the plan is that there's a pretty easy access from the parking on the west side across that bridge if needed to get to where the amphitheater is. So it's in all very close proximity to each other and it can support that vehicle.
And I saw 2024 timeframes. We've already waited, seems like 4 years now, even since we gathered up people to help us, advise us.
Yes.
It chokes me on the monies, of course, and I'm still know you guys are gonna talk some more about it. But my initial idea is, let's look at all of it. With you two that spoke over there.
The bridge is handicap accessible and all that?
Yes, the site would be accessible. So all the walkways that you see there, they would all be accessible facilities.
And since you spoke first, any extras come out of your budget?
You got it?
Okay, I'm done.
Okay. And don't
So,
move-
based on what I'm hearing, we're gonna go all 3 phases.
Yes.
Okay?
Go for it.
Have at it.
Well,
Thank you, Park Committee.
we're very excited.
Did you guys wanna say anything?
Thank you.
It's a work
Just
session.
talking about the whole prolonged process. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it is a work session, so we can be a little bit more casual. I know when we're set up like this, we all get into council meeting mode. But again, the Parks and Rec Committee, one of the things that we did was say, if we want to build a park of this type and spend this kind of money, let's get some feedback from the community. And they have served that role, and they've been engaged for quite a long time. And so I'm sure it's been quite the experience, because you see how long this has taken. But I think in using that process, I think we got a really good final product. We had a really good experience with Kimley Horn and getting all the amenities put in place, and then also phasing this so you had options, right? So that it would be easy. It's a complex project, and yet we were able to present it in phases that allowed you the opportunity to say 1, 2, 3, whatever you feel is appropriate. We do have the money in the general fund reserves. It's one-time money. This is a one-time expenditure, and it gets us a really, really nice amenity for the community that we don't have, right? This is gonna be a unique amenity for the community that we do not have. So I think going forward with it, I know, sometimes we look at it and say, well, it's a park, but parks are important too. It gives our community a place to go and get together and recreate, and I think we'll get a lot of use out of it. So I appreciate all council's work on this and support.
Roughly when, how long, I think you had it up there, the completion would be roughly when?
So our plan is to have final plans to you all in early summer of this year. So the bidding process could take 60 days potentially, depending on how your procurement process works. And then construction of this, I would budget at least a year to construct.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, well, we sure appreciate it.
Thank you, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, then we'll move on to item number 7.
So we have to reconvene back into the regular meeting?
Yes, we do.
We're not gonna do the other one?
No.
Oh, we're done.
You need a motion, Vice Mayor? or-
Yeah.
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna reconvene back into our regular meeting. Thanks again.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, and item 7. The first is the City of Safford Fire Chief, a recommendation for approval of the fire chief and for the calendar year 2024.
Good evening, Vice Mayor, members of council. City Manager is recommending that City Council approve Clark Bingham as City of Safford Fire Chief for calendar year 2024. Mr. Bingham was nominated and elected by City of Safford Fire Department members at the meeting held on December 5th. As per the city municipal code, which I have in here, which I won't read, I'm bringing his nomination forward for your approval tonight.
Vice Mayor, make the motion, we accept this approval of Clark Bingham for Fire Chief.
Okay, we have the motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve our new fire chief. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Number 2, fire chief benefits, deferred compensation options for the fire chief. John?
Good evening, Vice Mayor, members of council. Staff is seeking city council approval of a deferred compensation plan to be used by individuals appointed to the position of fire chief for the City of Safford Fire Department. Background, staff has been working with the City of Safford Fire Pension Board to update the length of service award plan known as an LSAP, which is a retirement plan for the City of Safford Fire Department. During that update process, the plan was identified as an Article 4 plan. There was some question, Article 3, Article 4. It was identified as an Article 4 plan. An actuarial analysis was done and benefits to be provided were analyzed. As a result of legal analysis, it was determined that given the salary being paid to the fire chief position, that the position of fire chief was not eligible for participation in the Article 4 LSAP plan. Staff therefore recommended an alternative be provided if the city wanted to be able to recruit qualified candidates for the fire chief position. The analysis, the alternative that staff recommended was the use of a 457B deferred compensation plan. Such a plan is already provided by the city, managed by a third-party vendor, and meets all federal guidelines addressing deferred compensation benefits. At the request of the Fire Pension Board, a review of other potential options was also pursued. Staff contacted our current vendor, Nationwide, who agreed to send a representative to speak to the Fire Pension Board so they could make the best choice given their circumstances. Staff and the vendor recommend that the 457B be used as the alternative to a 401A plan, which is less flexible. Staff also recommended that city match the employee contribution up to 7%, the same contribution rate currently contributed by firefighters. Fire Pension Board unanimously approved the 457B plan option with the 7% matching provision. Also, at the request of the Fire Pension Board, staff will be seeking council approval to add the 401A retirement plan as an option for all employees during the FY25 budget process. Adding the 401A plan to our existing benefits plan would not add any additional expenditure on the part of the city. And with that, I will take any questions that you have.
Anybody have any questions?
So, the pensions board is made up of volunteer firefighters?
Correct.
That's the pension board?
Yes.
Okay, and the actual analyst was done by staff?
The analysis of the pension itself or
Yeah.
the options?
The actual analysis was done
Actuarial analysis.
By-
That was done by a third-party vendor that came in and analyzed the, how solid the plan itself was to support the payouts in the future. But that was done by a third-party vendor.
And to make sure we were doing it legally.
Yes, it was done by a qualified actuarial.
And we want to extend this, you said it's gonna come up in the budget to extend it to all of them. What do they
Vice
have
Mayor
now?
Ortega, Councilman Lopez, what I want to bring up in the budget process is the 401A plan, because essentially what we did with the Fire Pension Board was try to decide on an option for the fire chief to have a pension option. The decision for that option was the 457B, and looking at the 457B, we also looked at something called the 401A. So rather than combine that into this action, my preference is to bring it to council as part of the budget process, even because it's separate and apart from what we are deciding to give to the fire chief. But I want it to be an actual affirmative action on the part of council. It won't cost you anything, it simply becomes another option that staff can use. It doesn't cost us anything, but I want to bring that during the budget process as a new benefit which will be offered to all employees.
Because we have some of that now, you saying,
We have the 457B.
457B. It's not gonna cost us nothing, I've heard before.
All it is adding an additional option for retirement, so it's really a choice by the employee. So it won't cost us anything more, it's simply another choice. The vendor nationwide isn't gonna charge us more if we add the 401A to the plan.
Okay, well, it sounds like a good benefit to offer our volunteer firemen to try to attract them and keep them.
Yes.
So,
Well, otherwise, the fire chief position, if filled, would have no option for a pension. This gives them an option for a pension.
we kinda got a pretty good fire chief.
Well, he's grandfathered, so he's covered under the old rules, but moving forward, we will offer the 457B.
Okay, sir, thank you.
Okay,
Vice Mayor, I move that we approve the deferred compensation plan to be used by individuals appointed to the position of fire chief
Second.
as presented.
okay. We have a motion and a second to approve the fire chief benefits, the deferred compensation option for the fire chief. All in favor? Opposed?
Vice
Motion-
Mayor, before we move on, I'd like to note the presence of Supervisor Chairman Paul David. Brad?
Thank you, Paul. Okay, then we'll move on to item number 3. It's the minutes of December 11th meeting. Any comments on or changes?
Vice Mayor, make the motion, we accept the minutes from December 11th, 2023.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the minutes of December 11th, 2023. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Okay, then we'll move on to item 8, the resolutions. Number 1, Resolution R 24-001. It's the alcohol and substance abuse policy.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and Council. This is a request for Vice Mayor and Council to adopt resolution number R24-001, a resolution adopting the revisions to the HR alcohol and substance abuse policy. The background is that the policy has not recently been updated and lacked after-hour drug and alcohol screening procedures. Additionally, the city engaged with the Pierce Coleman Group for legal review concerning the policy for updates and edits. There are 2 updates to the policy. First, to establish after-hour drug and alcohol screening procedures. The HR department met with management at the Copper Mountain Clinic to create a process for drug and alcohol screening that will run through the hospital's ER and lab during non-business hours. These procedures have been added to the policy for clarity. Next, the Pierce Coleman Group updated the definition of safety-sensitive positions to current best practice in regard to random testing. The recommendation is to adopt Resolution R24-001, which revises the alcohol and substance abuse policy to include after-hour drug and alcohol testing procedures and a revised definition for safety-sensitive positions. Can I answer any questions?
Any comments or questions? If not, would you read the? Pardon? We need a motion to approve resolution R 24-001.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve resolution R 24-001. That's alcohol and substance abuse policy. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries?
Thank you. I'll need to read it in.
Yes.
This approval resolution number R 24-001, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Safford, Grant County, Arizona, approving the alcohol and substance abuse policy of the Human Resources Policy Manual for City of Safford employees.
Thank you. And we'll move on to item number 9. It's ordinance 023-012. It's a revision of the police department fee schedule. Brian?
Good evening, Vice Mayor and Council. This is a request to have a second reading for ordinance 023-012, which is a revision of a police department fee schedule. If you remember from last meeting, this was to get in line with current ARS law, as well as bring our current fees up to date for redaction, videos, reports, things like that. And this will be a second read. Can answer any questions.
I asked you about returned equipment last time, so
Is that it?
that's it, sir, with me.
Okay.
Is this an action item, Mayor?
Yes, yes it is.
I'll make the motion we approve 023-012 revision of the police department fee schedule.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 023-012. It's a revision of the police department fee schedule. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries?
Thank you.
Read it.
Approval of ordinance number 023-012, 023-012, an ordinance of the City of Safford, Grant County, Arizona, amending the City of Safford Police Department rates and fee schedule to update the current City of Safford rates and fee schedule and video recording fee change to coincide with SB 1148, amendment to the Arizona Revised Statute, Section 3, Title 39, Chapter 1, Article 2, for local law enforcement video recording fees.
Thank you. Okay, then we'll move on to item number 10, leases and contract agreements. We'll move, the first one is the Crosco Farm Lease Renewal Program.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and Council. This is a request for the Mayor and City Council to approve or disapprove a renewal for the Carrasco Farm Lease, parcel 107490001. Staff recommends approval, and your fee schedule and First Amendment are included in your packet. That I'll stand for questions.
Any questions, anybody?
No, sir.
It's an action item.
Well, yes, I do.
Okay.
Did we already make a decision on the property in Daly Estates? I believe it was Stevens.
Yes, Vice Mayor and Councilman Lopez, that was the Stevens,
Josephine.
yes, that was at the December 11th council meeting.
So it's done and gone through and we're good to go.
Yes, sir.
Nothing further, Vice Mayor.
I move that we approve the Crosco Farm lease renewal. Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second to approve the Crosco Farm Lease Agreement. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Number 2 is the Claridge Kempton Well Farm Lease Renewal.
Yes, Vice Mayor and Council, this is a request for the Mayor and City Council to approve or disapprove a renewal for the Claridge Kempton Well Farm Lease of parcel 102-33005. Staff recommends approval for the lease term of 5 years, and the payment schedule and renewal agreement are in your packet, as well as the original agreement.
No question.
No questions, anybody?
Move to approve the Claridge Kempton Well Farm lease renewal. Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve and a second, the Claridge Kempton Well Farm Lease Agreement. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. The next, number 3, is the Ferguson Farm Lease Renewal.
Yes, Vice Mayor and Council, this is a request for the Mayor and City Council to approve or disapprove a renewal for the Ferguson Farm Lease of a portion of parcel 102-14003B. Your payment schedule and lease agreement are included in your packet if you have any questions.
Any questions?
Move that we approve the Ferguson Farm lease renewal.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the Ferguson Farm lease renewal. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Okay, thank you. Then we'll move on to item number 11, the report on operational items. And we have number 1, IT double process.
Two-form factor authentication, Vice Mayor Ortega and Council, good evening. It's my pleasure to get to talk to you a little bit about what we're doing in the IT department as far as security is concerned. With what has happened around in our valley, especially, it happens all the time, but I think we've had some local incidents recently, and I don't need to name names, you're aware of them, of breaches in security. Authentication being hacked, if you will. Basically, they find out the password, they use their password, they get into the system. And so with that forethought in mind, IT has produced a procedure to implement throughout the city two-form factor authentication to our employees so that we can prohibit that. Statistically, you are 99.99% less likely to be hacked with two-factor authentication in place than without. And that was pretty high standards. And so what that looks like, let's give you a demonstration. We started rolling it out to our power users. All the department heads have used it. Our accounting department, minus one, because he just got here, but we're working on that too, is using it, and we're working on rolling it out to multiple entities throughout the city. How two-form factor authentication works, by default, when you log into something, you use your username and your password and you're in, right? That's one authentication method, one test. Two-factor brings a second test in. And we have a couple of different ways to do that here. Those who have smartphones provided by the city, you probably have seen a mobile authentication app on your phone before for a bank or something else like that. We rolled that out for those users, and I'll demonstrate that right now. So I'm in to log into Office with my credentials. Type in my password. My words per minute go down to 2 when I'm typing in front of people. That's okay. This pops up, and on my phone, I just got an authentication request. Hit the button, hit approve, scans my face, that biometric, and there we go. That was the second form factor to log into my account. Now, the question that we had at the IT department, what if we have users out there that don't have a city-provided cell phone? How are they going to use two-form factor authentication? What's that process look like? And so I have another test here to show that. When they log in with this user, maybe. This is part of it. I am consistent on that second try. Yeah, right, this is 3 form factor. You'll see a grid up there. Now, they don't need to have a cell phone or anything else like that, a mobile device to pass this authentication. How this works, let me describe it. You'll see a set of numbers and a grid up there. When they set this up, they choose a pattern on that grid. Now, that pattern can be a letter, it can be corners, it can be a straight line. Whatever pattern you decide on that grid is your pattern, okay? And then your passcode is simply how you drew that pattern. Does that make sense?
And
That's
those
clear as
numbers,
mud?
So far.
Okay?
those numbers will be different.
Every time you
Right,
authenticate,
so you're
correct.
just hitting your same spots.
Yeah, exactly. Android was really popular with that for a while by swiping a different way to authenticate and log into your phone. Similar thing here. And so I have a pattern picked out here, and I can tell you it's not super secret. This is a test account, but I chose like a simple L. So we come down all the way down here and we go over 2. So those are all the numbers that I'm going to type in right now. And again, it changes every time. So 8, 7, 5, 2, 9, 3, 7. And we're authenticated and we're in. Okay? And again, those numbers change every time. And the beautiful thing about this, say someone was watching over my shoulder and somehow they guess that pattern, you still don't know the password to that account. And again, that's where that 2 and 4 factor authentication and the strength comes, is you have to have both methods to get into the account. Any questions?
You say their numbers change all the time?
Every time I log in, they'll change. So that number I just read out loud and typed in, it will never be the same.
Well, what stays the same, that L portion?
Correct, the pattern.
Okay.
Good question.
Just don't forget that,
Yeah, that,
We got you if that's the case, no
Yeah.
worries. We can,
so,
we can
I've
help
got
you out.
that so far.
But on the standpoint of security, from an IT standpoint, it's in our forefront. It's one of the hats that we get to wear, not only for multi-factor authentication, but we're reviewing more and more. One instance per se would be our backup strategy and how that looks. We have a pretty decent backup strategy right now. Could it be better? Yes, and that's what we're working on. We want to be able to have they call them an RPO and RDO. It's basically your time in response in a disaster or a hack or ransomware to be up and operational. And we have a goal to get that under an hour to be able to up and operational. And that goes back to really, really good backups.
I'm still figuring out whether I'm a robot or not.
You're ahead of me.
Yeah. But, yeah, a couple of the meetings I went to, I'm glad IT specialists across the valley are coming together somewhat to make sure that when these things take place again, that you're there to support one another.
And Vice Mayor Ortega and Councilman Lopez, exactly. The program that we're using, if you saw that come up there, it looks like Thales, but it's pronounced Talus, and that is actually provided to us by the Arizona State Department of Homeland Security. And so they have gone out and purchased this product and offered it to municipalities and organizations throughout Arizona for free, just like you said, to combat what's going on out there, so we can work together.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions, gentlemen?
Any more questions or comments? Sure, thank you then.
Thank you.
Then we'll move on to item number 12, announcement of current events. Anybody?
Something that was current, something we heard tonight was we had already been going forward to see about our fee structures in the utilities and stuff, kind of like what the gentleman had brought up this evening and stuff. And we began that, but now that we have changes going on in the finance department and stuff, I think we'll pick up where we left off, hopefully. Get the gentleman on board, we'll be ready.
We're working on it.
Okay.
We'll move on to item number 13. Any requests for future agenda items? Okay, if not, we'll move on. We'll close the regular meeting and reconvene into council work session. And we'll go into item number 2, and that's the natural gas rebate program.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here to present the natural gas rebate program, one of the Conserve to Preserve programs we have out there. We came to discuss what fees we want to do and all of our different options and where we want to go ahead with this program and what we want to set our program specifics at. So the natural gas rebate program starts, well, the reason for the rebate program is to give our customers a rebate for upgrading to more efficient natural gas appliances and saving money on their utility bills. So some of the programs in the U.S. in 2020, they saved about 325 million therms of energy. That's about 1.7 metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions saved. That's equivalent to about 8.6 billion miles by car. Natural gas homes typically have the lowest energy costs. A typical gas home averages 1,068 annually by using natural gas appliances at the minimum efficiency rating. And that's for space and water heating, cooking, and drying. An advanced gas home averages about 899 annually by using high-efficiency natural gas appliances for space, water heating, cooking, and drying. And then an all-electric home will cost you about $2,090 per year. Extraordinarily efficient natural gas. A tankless natural gas water heater will consume about 8.6 MMBTUs annually. a natural gas, just tanked water heater will cost you, will use about 26.64 MMBTUs annually. And an electric resistant water heater was gonna use about 49.8 MMBTUs annually. This is our proposed eligible appliances and associated rebates. So the eligible appliances we're looking at are the natural gas water heaters. We'd give them $50 when they replace a water heater. Stove would be $50. Clothes dryer, $50. Wall heater, $50. And then we have natural gas pool and spa heaters would be a $100 rebate. And a natural gas furnace would be a $100 rebate, and a natural gas generator would be a $100 rebate. And then the proposed requirements would be the applicant must be a City of Safford natural gas customer with an individual meter, not a master meter. Only homeowners would be eligible, no commercial accounts. And the rebate will be in the form of a bill credit, so they'll get that money back on their bill. The water heater must be at least a 30-gallon tanked water. That's for a tanked water heater. And the inspection of the premises by City of Safford personnel, that could even be us or a building inspector. And the copies of the receipts or invoices showing where they were purchased and the date of purchase. In the case of a new build, you don't get those receipts, stuff like that. We'll just have we'll just do an inspection, just check for the appliances. And then the appliances must be brand new, and they are going to be limited to 6 months from the date of purchase that they can get the rebate. That's except for newer builds. When they do their final inspection, we'll check them out and verify. Appliance must be installed and operational. Eligible appliances installed last year. So I got these numbers from our building inspector. We had natural gas water heaters. We had about 15 of them. Natural gas stoves, about 15. Natural gas dryers, we had about 8 installed. Natural gas wall heaters, we don't really see those that often anymore, but we had about 3 of them installed. Natural gas pool and spa heaters, we had about 6 of them. And then natural gas furnaces, we had about 15 of them installed. And generators, we had about 4. And so that, if we were to start this, if we were to have this rebate this last year, we would have given out about $4,550 back in rebates. And then we wanted to start maybe with a trial run of like $7,500, have that be the cap, and then we'd give rebates up to that amount, and then after that, we wouldn't have any more rebates unless we decided to go higher than that. And that's, I have my conserve to preserve slide, and then any questions or comments or anything you would like to change?
Armand, I just want to say you're doing a good job, so keep it up.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I kind of think you don't have enough rebate here.
You think?
Because some of the products that are out there, they're offering them rebates to buy a electric appliance at $50. So, that's a wash when it comes to here. So I know you're testing it now.
Yes, sir.
But we may want to go to 100 in some areas, just to give them a little added push.
So I researched some other rebate programs. City of Mesa was one of the only ones that we have in Arizona that had another program. Their fees were about half of what we have, and they only had like maybe 2, I think they only had water heaters and generators on there. That's all they had. So, but that was about half, but if you guys want, we can double those.
Well, you're gonna do the trial.
Yeah, we can do the trial at this amount, and if we decide and it's a good hit, we can actually double them later on, or.
And we still don't see what's gonna happen with the battle against natural gas.
Yeah.
So we need the incentive, every incentive we can get coming this way.
Yes, sir.
I also had another question. I don't know if that's gonna fall for Jamie maybe, but can somebody that's gonna build a subdivision, can they refuse to put natural gas in that subdivision? That's in our coding. That's something we can't fight.
It's definitely something we can look at moving forward, but there are some new projects that don't use gas. They're all electric.
So and see what we.
This
can-
incentive program may really help bring them into using natural gas.
Like,
It's,
cause you said it wasn't for commercial, so,
right, it would be the homeowner. So when they got the C of O and bought their home within the 6 months, then it would be the homeowner that got the rebate, not the developer.
so every developer we have come in, you're gonna fight them to
Well,
get natural gas put in.
Yes, this program can be mentioned at our upcoming pre-development conferences, and it's savings they could pass on to the homeowner.
Cause that's kinda shooting ourselves in the foot. So,
Yes, and we are looking at development regulations, so if it's something that you'd like to look at, we can include that in our review.
well, that, I know, right now, the subdivision developer has the option apparently, or the designer, the engineer, whoever. What can we do to combat that?
And this program may be something that could incentivize that.
Okay.
Mr. Vice Mayor, this is Bill Sims.
Yes, Bill?
Jamie's right. You can't force it now, but you can create incentives later.
Okay, that's kinda what I'd certainly wanna have on the horizon. Cause I don't wanna give them the option. Cause I don't want the added strain necessarily on the electrical, or, well, you know all the reasons
Yeah.
why. Thank you, Bill.
Yes, Councilman
Yes, sir.
McCray?
What is the, I guess I'm not playing dumb, I'm being dumb, but what is the end goal here? What are we trying, I mean, if you're trying to get more gas used instead of, are we having to replace an electric thing with a gas thing to get the rebate?
No, actually, if you just replace, let's say, if you replaced your water heater with a newer water heater that's more efficient, then you would get the rebate.
So it just has to be more efficient?
Doesn't have to be more expensive, it
Because
just has
you're
to be
gonna replace
newer.
it regardless.
Yeah, it's gonna be newer, so yeah, if your water heater goes out and you replace it with a newer water heater, it's gonna be more efficient than the previous water heater, so you would get that rebate.
Okay, I misunderstood. I thought you were trying to get them to switch to gas from.
Yeah, if a customer has a electric water heater and they switch to a natural gas water heater, they would be eligible for the rebate.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? If not, we sure, thanks.
Thank you.
Then we'll move on to item number 16. We'll close our work session and reconvene into regular council meeting.
Vice Mayor, make the motion, we adjourn.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Boy, what a bunch. Good bunch.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
See you, John. Thanks.
Bye-bye.